Hi, Carlin. How are you today?
Hi, good, Amanda. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Good.
All right. So, since our last meeting, we had asked you to take a few more assessments. One of them being the Myers-Briggs type assessment. So, how was taking that assessment for you? Did you find it easy to use? Difficult?
Yeah, I felt like it was pretty easy to use. I kind of like that there were less questions compared to the strong interest inventory, to be honest. So it was a little bit quicker to get through. I think probably just the biggest thing was it will tell you, like, oh, don't think too much about the question, just go ahead and answer, but that can be hard sometimes. So I'm like, oh, do I agree with this? Do I strongly agree with this? So yeah, but I mean, for the most part, it was like pretty easy to kind of navigate, and I felt like the questions, for the most part, made sense. So yeah, that was a good experience.
Yeah, a lot of the questions might be like, are you realistic or creative? And you're like, I'm both. And so it's like you don't really know which one to pick. So
right.
Kind of just got to go with your gut answer, but sometimes that's hard.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
And this is like more of this Myers-Briggs assessment is more of like a spectrum of things too. So if you might lean more in one way, but you still are, like, it doesn't mean if you're on one side, it doesn't mean that you don't have anything from the other side.
Sure.
So it's more of a spectrum of sorts, but so that makes sense in that situation. So let's take a look at what you scored. You got an ENFP for your score.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Myers-Briggs? Have you taken it before?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I've taken it. The last time I took the formal assessment was probably about 5 years ago in one of my courses. I got an ESFP in that, and for the most part, I felt it was accurate, but I started to look into it a little bit more and did some research on the type, and I think I was on a website, and I happened to stumble upon the description for ENFP, and I was like, oh, no, that's actually more me. It was the ENFP result, so I've kind of thought about myself, like, just kind of from that lens for a while, so I guess in terms of the results, that's what I was expecting for the most part.
Okay. Yeah, so like, again, like I mentioned, it's kind of more of like a spectrum, so things might fluctuate more. So maybe before when you were an S, you might have only been slightly sensing, whereas like now. So it could be, but it's cool that you're able to find that ahead of time. And so let's take a look at the difference between E and I. So E stands for extroversion, I is for introversion. These really just focus on like what you focus your attention on, or like when you focus that. So people for extroversion tend to focus on the outer world of people, and introverted people tend to focus more on the inner world of ideas and impressions. So I think there's a big common misconception with this, that extroverted people are just like these really crazy, extroverted, like loud people, and introverted people are more shy and quiet and reserved, which could be true, but it really focuses more on like how you focus on the outer world and how you process that. And so, do you think that extroversion fits you well or describes you?
I would say both the definition in the test and the stereotype those are all true in my case. I mean, I really get a lot of energy from people. I really enjoy being in those social situations and kind of just collaborating with others, like bouncing off ideas, like even just small talk as well, just kind of having that. Sometimes maybe toward the end of the day, I kind of get into more of that introverted sense, like when I'm, like taking a little bit more time and I feel like I have like a million different like thoughts going internally. But yeah, I would say definitely for being extroverted, like, and valuing different activities and things like that, that's important to me.
Yeah, it seems like from my interaction with you, I would say that not only that, but the stereotype fits you well as well.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't surprise too many people who knew me.
All right, let's move on to the next one. So versus intuition. And this really looks at like how you take in information. So sensing folks tend to take in information through the five senses and focus on the here and now, whereas intuition, those folks tend to take in information from patterns in the big picture and focus on future possibilities. So I know you mentioned this was kind of the one where maybe your letter had changed from past to now. So how do you see that that fits you?
Yeah, so I would say definitely now I identify more with intuition, so I'll spend a lot of time thinking about how things are connected and future events and just all the different possibilities that are out there, pretty much when it comes to anything. So it can be hard sometimes to use like the senses, I guess, like and stay in the here and now. Like so sometimes like I'll think about things like that, like, oh, what are we gonna have to eat later? What are we gonna do this weekend? But I won't notice what color someone's shirt is wearing, like even if I've been around them for a while. Like sometimes things like that will happen. So I think I definitely think about things from a broader perspective, and I can focus in when I need to, but a lot of times it's going to be like those big picture ideas.
Yeah, so it seems like you have come to understand this a little bit better now and feel that this type fits you well, and you really do look at the big picture of things. So I can see how maybe it has shifted more from the S to the N in that case. All right, let's move on to the next letters. So there is thinking and feeling for this one, and this really just looks at how you make decisions. So people who prefer thinking tend to make decisions based primarily on logic and on objective analysis of cause and effect, whereas people who tend to prefer feeling make decisions based primarily on values and on subjective evaluation of person-centered concerns. So how do you feel that feeling fits you?
That one definitely resonated with me as well. I focus a lot of my energy on working with others and kind of what we can do to benefit them, and so like a lot of times like I will take that into concern when making decisions. A lot of my work is kind of focused on that within the graduate program and when I was working full time as well. So I definitely value other people's perspectives and will give that a lot of weight, I would say. So that doesn't surprise me that it kind of came up like that.
Yeah, I can see how that one would fit you as well from our previous conversation, from this conversation. So that seems like it would be a good fit for you. And then this last one is judging versus perceiving. And so this talks about how you deal with the outer world. So people who prefer judging tend to like plan an organized approach to life and want to have things settled, whereas people who prefer perceiving tend to like a flexible and spontaneous approach to life and want to keep their options open. So you feel like perceiving is the one that fits you better in that situation?
I think it still does. If I remember right, that used to be one that was fairly well established, and I think it still is, but I've found that as I've gotten older, sometimes I've had to go to, making lists and having things like that, just like a planned approach in order to get things done that I need to get done as like a requirement for my job or whatever the situation may be. And I've kind of grown to like that sometimes. It can be very satisfying to make the list of things and like a plan and then check them off and like have that sense of achievement. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, even though I like having that, I think that if I needed to be flexible, I still could. So yeah, I think that one in general still kind of makes sense with who I am.
Mm-hmm. And like I've mentioned a lot already, it is more of a spectrum. So
sure.
Like just because like you're a thinker or a feeler doesn't mean you're not a thinker, but just because you're perceiving doesn't mean you're not judging at all either. Right. So having that list, you've learned to adapt to create a planned list so that you know what things you have to accomplish. But like maybe you still like to be flexible and like when you complete those things or have like a spontaneous approach to different aspects of it. So it seems seems like that does tend to resonate with you, but you still have tendencies that people who fit in judging might also have as well.
Right. Yeah. Like one of the things I think defines that is like having it where I like having a job where no 2 days are the same. So like even in my setting, like where I might have judging and like structured in terms of these are my appointments for the day and these are always the times that I have appointments, it could be very different things that we're talking about throughout. So I think that definitely makes sense with what you said.
And that's a good example for that. All right, so now I wrote down the specific description for ENFPs. So I'm going to have you go ahead and read this and see how accurate you think it is, and if any of the words stand out to you that do describe you or that do not describe you.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, basically everything. To be honest, some of the ones like just looking at it that stood out. I mean, enthusiastic for sure. I still definitely see life as full of possibilities. I think wanting a lot of affirmation from others rings true, and sometimes that's not always the case that's out there. But it's something I'm trying to work past and like not need that all the time. But it's still true. And then appreciation and support. I think that definitely those are two good ones. Oh, I guess I read this too fast. I thought it said often rely on their ability to improve, but it says improvise. But I think that those are both those are both probably accurate as well. So yeah, I think that definitely is something that resonates with me.
And again, from meeting with you before and now, I can see how a lot of those words do seem to describe your personality fairly well, since this is like more of a personality assessment rather than a career assessment.
Right.
So why don't we transition kind of into the more career side of things, since you are here for career counseling. Right. So let's look at that. So this is kind of what it describes for ENFPs, how it describes your preferred work tasks and preferred work environment. How do you think that this aligns kind of with how you see yourself?
So I think helping others develop or learn is a big part of what I've done throughout my professional career and now in graduate school. So just kind of that people-oriented, kind of helping others achieve their goals, things like that. Developing multiple solutions to problems, I think that that's definitely true because every situation is going to be different in education. So a lot of times we're not able to do things the same way every time. So being flexible that way, I think, is important. I would say, motivating others by conveying enthusiasm and energy. And I think a lot of times I just don't even think of that as a work task. Like that's just who I am anyway. So it's not like I even flip on a switch. That's just what I do, I guess. And moving quickly from one project to the other. So I like to have kind of that openness and flexibility working on multiple things at different times, so that way I don't get too bogged down in one thing. That definitely makes sense. And then, did you want me to look at
the work
environment
area as well?
Yeah. So teamwork, that's definitely a big one for me. I look for that everywhere that I go in terms of professional setting. That means a lot to me. Working with a variety of people. I see a lot of people in my internship, and so I enjoy having that variety and interacting with all types of people. And yeah, I would say, people who get excited by new possibilities. That's definitely a big one. And then encouraging and rewarding creativity. So I think, again, tying back to different solutions for different problems, things like that, and kind of embracing that is important.
Do maybe surprise you? Or they all kind of seem like something that you would want to have within your work environment, or what you would like to do for work?
Yeah. None seem too surprising. I guess I kind of like the thinking about opportunities to travel or work with people in other countries. I think that would be fun. I haven't done that before, but that's good to know that that's something, if that opportunity comes up, that's something that would potentially be a good fit for me. I think for the most part, though, one that we didn't talk about was creating new products or services. So I think that, even though that's not something that I typically work with all the time, I think having that entrepreneurial kind of mentality or spirit makes sense with the type. So I could see that being enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Like with improvising, showing up there, like improvising and innovating kind of sometimes go hand in hand.
Right.
So maybe that might fit you in you never expected before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows, right? The possibilities are endless. So
that they are.
Yeah.
All right. So these are some of the strengths that will help you with some challenges that you may face. So I'll have you kind of look at those and see what you think about them.
Yeah, I feel like for the most part, those are pretty accurate. Some of the ones that kind of stood out would be conveying enthusiasm and energy. I feel like for the most part, I can do that, like to interviewers, like when I'm talking with people. And again, I feel like it's just innate. Like it's not something that I hopefully don't come across as like superficial or something like that, or it's fake. But and then the challenges I feel like resonated a lot. So having a hard time focusing amid all of the possibilities, like just from doing career counseling in the past, it can be a little hard to narrow down certain things, and spending too much time socializing rather than networking. I feel like that's true, but I feel like just pushing back from that, like just my personal values, like I don't like networking because it doesn't have that sense of genuineness to me. So I do that intentionally where it's like I'm socializing, but it's like I'm trying to build those connections. So it's like, when I like talk to somebody later, if I need something or I need them to do something for me, whatever, it's coming from a place where it's like we have this relationship established, whereas networking, in my experience, isn't always like that. So that's kind of where I fall on that one. And then having no concrete action plan to help meet goals. I feel like that one's maybe not, it's like half true for me because I feel like I'm really good with coming up with the concrete action plans for whatever the goal is, but then I'm like, oh, but now there's this goal, and so I can make concrete action plan steps for that goal and then just neglect the other one or forget it. So I feel like that part I at least have down, like coming up with the steps most of the time or figuring out how to do that, but it's just the follow through that can be challenging.
Definitely. It seems as if like all of this stuff has really resonated a lot with you and it fits you well, and so I'm glad that it's kind of reaffirmed some of those beliefs you might have already had about yourself or brought some new beliefs to mind to kind of consider about things. Excuse me. The last thing I'm going to have us look at is looking at different rankings of job families for ENFPs typically, and then most popular occupations. So these kind of careers and things are going to give you more of like a starting place to look at, and we can look and see if any of these align with your interests outside of this. Again, this is more of like just a personality assessment that shows your natural preferences for things. So if you want to kind of look at the top here of most attractive jobs and pay attention to that percentage of how highly they score ranking like relating to you as an ENFP.
Yeah, I guess I'm not too surprised with what came up for. Well, that's maybe not true. So for some of these, I can see. So like the personal care and service. So I feel like a lot of mine came up with helping others and different things like that. So having that, arts, design, entertainment, things like that. I think that that's something maybe in terms of a job family, I maybe wouldn't look at quite as much, or at least as a full-time thing, like maybe as something with volunteering or part-time, things like that. But I could sort of see that one. And same with, or I guess with community and social services, so like careers like career counselor and education, with administrators and different things like that. Those are both ones that I could definitely see. So they're all, I think that that's good, that it's like there's this range where it's like these top 5, the scores are fairly close to each other. And then after that, they're ones that I could see, I guess like farming, fishing, and forestry was a little bit surprising, just because with like looking at my strong interest inventory, that those seem like more realistic occupations, and that wasn't an area that I scored in very highly. But I know that this is just like ENFPs in general, so it's not just me. But yeah, no, I think that all of those, for the most part, that makes sense in that order.
Yeah, so that's why I think it's like important to look at these two, but also knowing that these are more of just like a personality assessment for all ENFPs. So it's not a one shoe fits all for everyone. Like some ENFPs might be more inclined to this top area, while some might be more inclined to like the forestry and farming and those aspects of things. So it's kind of cool to see though how like your own career interests or maybe hobbies and things that you're just interested in outside of career work also might align within your personality and fit in there. It's good for you to be able to like look at that and recognize that. Let's take a look at your top most popular occupations for ENFPs. So there's like a craft artist, actor, performing artist, dancer, photographer, forester, musician. And then it gets down to like counseling, which you've mentioned, fitness trainer, bartender, hairdresser, restaurant host. And over here we have some more of those like counseling, teaching, school counselor, social worker. So how do you think that these align with you?
I feel just like thinking about these, it's like I could split it into 2 different categories where it's like, okay, like these are ones that I can see myself doing and I could pursue right now, versus there's some that it's like, oh, that would be fun, but like I don't know if that's just based on what I'm doing right now, if that's realistic, or if that's something that I would want to pursue. So the ones that I'm thinking of that fall into that first category, so I mean the career counselor one, that was one that also came up, that was the top one on the strong interest inventory, so I think that one definitely makes sense. And school counselors within that same realm. And then, adult education teacher, so like kind of in that education realm, those are definitely ones that are appealing to me and like helping others, so pretty much any of those, like with the counseling side of things, definitely makes sense. And then the other ones, I don't know, I just thought that they would be fun, so I don't know, I wish I was like good enough at that stuff to be a fitness trainer, because I feel like that would be like a cool a cool job, but yeah, I would have a ways to go before I could do that. And I don't know, when we were reading the bartender one, I just thought of Nick Miller from New Girl. I was like, oh, that would be cool. I could be Nick Miller, but I don't know if that maybe is the career that I want to pursue at this moment. So I don't know. They sound fun. So I mean, I think that kind of relates to just the ENFP thing, just on the aggregate, just being like, oh yeah, like that sounds fun. That's a possibility. So it's like all these possibilities are out there. So I think it's just all about, looking at the list and figuring out which ones I would want and things like that.
Yeah. No, I feel like you said like before, a lot of these things seem to either fit you, kind of what you've mentioned, going in like a career direction, but some of them might also fill those interests or hobbies you have outside of things, or things that maybe land highly within an area on yours that you've never really thought about before, like a craft artist, but maybe it's things that you might look at in your free time just to kind of use as a hobby to balance those out. It's like looking at all of this information. Is there anything else that would be helpful for you? Any other information you would like from all of this?
I feel like I had something and I was going to write it down, but I forgot.
No, it's okay. I know it's a pretty long report to begin with.
Yeah. Well, I think it was. Did it have the positions that maybe weren't like the best fit?
Yeah, so I think it's some lower.
Oh, okay.
So these are some least popular occupations.
Okay.
So air crew member, bank teller, engineering lands in a few of them.
Okay.
So maybe some more of those like sciencey fields.
Okay. Because I think that's good to know. Because I mean, like we talked about, it's just a personality assessment and things like that. But just to at least, since I tend to think about so many different options, it would be nice to know, like, okay, this is an option, but maybe there are better options. So having some way to kind of narrow it down a little bit is good.
Yeah.
So good. I'm glad that's there.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any other questions or things you would like to discuss?
Nothing I can think of. Thank you. This was really helpful.
Yeah, of course.
So.
I'll make sure I send you an email copy of this PDF so that you can look at it in your free time, and hopefully it'll help you kind of look at your career decisions a little bit more.
All right. That sounds good.
Thank
Thanks
you, Carlin.
so much.